Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome. Today we're going to continue our playthrough of Save South Vietnam, the solitaire war game where you play the US and South Vietnamese forces throughout the span of the Vietnam conflict. Now we've survived 3 years so far without losing Saigon, but today is our biggest test yet. The Tet Offensive is coming up, a massive North Vietnamese and Viet Cong offensive operation that's going to test the mettle of our US forces in the region. Let's jump in and get started. January 1968, here's a look at the Vietnam War. Now, a couple things to make note of. We know the Tet Offensive is going to start in 1 year's time, so we've got 1 year to prepare for it. And also, a side note, this is, we almost are at peak U.S. military involvement in the war. We've only got 2 squadrons of helicopters coming in later this year, and that will get us to the maximum of U.S. involvement in the war in the course of the whole conflict that we're going to fight out. So we've got a lot of troops here now. Our big goals this month, big goals this year, are going to be to try to take care of these anti-aircraft units, make sure we don't lose any provinces, clean up these North Vietnamese army brigades that are coming in through the remote areas. And then, of utmost importance, is try to have our forces as prepared and as replenished as possible so that we're going to be able to take on the Tet Offensive in a year's time. Let's take a quick look at each one of our areas, and then I'm going to play for it a whole year this time, see what the outcome looks like, and then we're going to get the Tet Offensive started. Here's our southern 3 provinces of South Vietnam. The Mekong region, even though it looks like it's a little bit unstable with these political cadres active in the area, we've got such a big police force that we can't see on the map. It's up in the political box that's in Mekong region, so this is actually very stable. Saigon's had more political cadres infiltrating the area. We're going to see some Viet Cong activity in here, but it should be hopefully something we can manage. Likewise, the Bien Ho, the 3rd province in the southern part of South Vietnam, looking pretty good, except we do want to make sure we are kind of quick to handle with some strong force these North Vietnamese brigades that have come in over the winter here. Again, with our military forces here, I feel like we have enough to do this. The key is going to be making sure that we recycle them and recover them and get them ready so they're not depleted at the end of the year when the Tet Offensive hits. Likewise, the central part of South Vietnam, again, the hot spots still. These 3 provinces still got a lot of activity going on. More North Vietnamese brigades up in here. And we do want to see if we can take out, I mean, all we really can do, we put helicopters in these regions, they get hit, and then we try to recover them. But as much as we can, I'd like to deplete these anti-aircraft resources for the North Vietnamese so that when the Tet Offensive comes, we won't have to worry about those and our helicopters will be able to hit and move fast. I'm a little bit concerned about these North Vietnamese brigades up here in Quang Tri, but hopefully we have a good amount of military forces around here. I think we can swing up there and take care of them. And again, want to try to do with minimal casualties. Otherwise, this area is looking pretty steady. I mean, we're going to see insurgencies, but it's nothing I don't think we can control. We just want to try to make sure we keep recovering our troops as we go through the year. There you have it. We'll be back in a year's time to take a look at how things went. So December 1968, we've made it through the past year, a relatively straightforward year with the just sheer force of U.S. military and the amount of U.S. military in the country right now. We were able to handle pretty in a straightforward fashion what was thrown against us. No problems with the North Vietnamese army brigades. We're able to make inroads here and to kind of put a little bit to cool the heat, if you would, on these 2 provinces and to reduce the level of insurgency here. By far, our biggest problem still Cam Ranh, where there are 10 political cadres down in here. This could be a hotspot, but I've tried to spread out our forces. We did a pretty good job recovering everyone. I think our next step now, rather than to show each of the areas in detail, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring on the other political cadres, and then we switch over all of those cadres to North Viet Cong forces. And we're going to be bringing in North Vietnamese army brigades too. So I'm going to do that, and then we're going to take a look because the stage will be set right then and then. The Tet Offensive is going to launch now, and we'll take a look as to how that looks like it might play out and where our problem spots will be. January 1969, we are ready to rock and roll. Here we go. A couple things. We were a little bit fortunate in that not as many North Vietnamese army brigades showed up as could have. They didn't get the largest resupply in this kind of reinforcement in this year, which was good. And our special forces did an outstanding job knocking out 3 political cadres before they could be converted into Viet Cong forces. So we had some good fortune. It could have been a lot worse. However, we still have our hands full. Let's go take a look at each region in particular and then talk a little bit about what our strategy might be. All right, so if we look at the southern region of South Vietnam, we have 4 strength points here, 5 in Saigon and 3 in Bien Ho. Relatively light with only 3 North North Vietnamese Army brigades showing up as well. I'm not 100% sure yet what I want to do, but I'm thinking we might hit Bien Ho hard, hit Mekong hard, and then collapse on Saigon. Although I want to prioritize turning Saigon into a +3 political state, because that will allow us to start recruiting police, which will get that ball rolling on the South Vietnamese Army units. If we're lucky, I'd love to be able to see if we can quickly as possible, perhaps in this year, I'm not sure if it's possible, to get both Saigon and Bien Ho into a positive number so we can get South Vietnamese Army units generating here, because in 6 months' time, our first U.S. forces are going to be leaving the area, one of which is the 2nd Brigade here in the 1st Infantry Division, and then down here we can see the 2nd and 3rd Brigades in the 9th Infantry Division. Also, because it doesn't matter what state they leave in, we're going to give them a lot of hard fighting, right? So we're going to have them get into a lot of battles and then send them back to the States. So we'll see what happens here. This relatively, compared to the other zones, relatively soft perhaps for a Tet Offensive. Let's go take a look at the central part of the country, which is not at all that kind of a case. All right, so we have the maximum Viet Cong forces down here in Cam Ranh, which is 10. And we also have strong anti-aircraft positions we couldn't take care of, so we won't be able to really bring, it wouldn't make sense, I think, in this Tet Offensive to bring helicopters in here. So it's going to be U.S. ground troops for the most part trying to take care of this. We do have a number of troops nearby we can use. However, these 4 North Vietnamese Army brigades are probably going to start to trickle down pretty quickly into this area, Quy Nhon. They have 5, so we can't let this get out of control either. I'm feeling like we're a little short on forces here, but we'll see how it can do it. I think it's going to be really 5 brigades in here and do the best we can, and then try to contain these until we quell this a little bit. On the right here in Quang Ngai, I think we're relatively stable. I might actually let them sit here for a little bit because they're only going to generate 1 additional Viet Cong force per turn, so per season. So I think we can let them sit while we take care of these and then swing over here. Just a rough plan. The North, Hue went from completely pacified, from completely peaceful to 6 Viet Cong forces here, a massive insurgence. And this is kind of the general thing. We got 7, 6, and 5 up here. This is pretty hot with North Vietnamese Army brigades coming in. And I wasn't expecting this, so we're a little bit short of U.S. troops up here, considering, well, I guess actually we're doing pretty good because we had some resupply here at Da Nang. So again, it might be the strategy of we take on 2 of these provinces, let the other one kind of build up a little bit and then hit them back rather than trying to spread ourselves thin across 3 provinces. So there you have it. We got a lot going on. I think what I'm going to do now is allocate some of these forces. I might show this battle down here in Cam Ranh because that's going to be relatively large, and maybe move forward 3 months at a time here because this I feel like is the biggest year we've had so far, and it's kind of a significant epic year in the terms of how the conflict's going to play out. We need to do well in order to be able to do well in the campaign, and we also have to prioritize getting Saigon and then Bien Ho building up their police forces so we can kind of reduce some of the pressure on these 3 areas, because we're going to start to lose over the course of 1969 here. We're going to lose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 U.S. ground brigades and 2 helicopter squadrons. So our forces are starting to head home, and we've got a lot of work to do. Let's dig in. Okay, it's January 1969. We've allocated all of our forces as the Tet Offensive starts out here. Just want to kind of show the regions to show what our thinking and our plan's going to be. In the south, I decided to go directly for Saigon because there's 5 strength points here. We're able to get 10 in here without having to bring any U.S. ground forces in, which means we should be able to knock out at least 4, which would give us a +3 rating. And just up here at the top of the screen here, that would allow us this season to start building the Saigon police force, which would be good because these units are going to get hit hard, and right now we can only recover South Vietnamese Army forces in the Mekong region because that's the only region that has a police force. So if this goes well, we should start to see Saigon building its police force in January 1969. We still have this regiment up here, the brigade up here to worry about, but we'll get that later. Then we're able to kind of hit this region hard as well, and I think after this, next season, we're going to try to shift. Well, I don't know. I want to get our South Vietnamese Army forces down here to be able to start building the police force here too. But we're going to have to shift up here and eventually take care of these the Mekong region, which is going to get a little bit hotter before it gets better. In the central part of South Vietnam, it's brute force against brute force. We've got 5 brigades squaring off against this 10 strength point Viet Cong insurgency down here. This area, we've sent, what I've found is kind of seems like a pretty good number is 10 strength points for the US, hopefully consisting only of -6. So that way, if we can knock out most of these troops, their political will is only going to be at -6 or 7, which means only 1 Viet Cong force will come back in. If we kind of inundate it with ground forces and go up to -8, then they get 2. So it takes just longer to quell this, but I feel like this could be a really good kind of strength of force so that we don't tick off the locals too much once the combat's over. Up here, we're sending up 2 already depleted brigades because excess strength points aren't lost. I assume we just retreat out. So we can do some damage and then bring them back and replete them, and the most we can take is 2 strength points of damage here. So it just seems like a way to kind of start to whittle down these brigades before they drop down into this region, which should be pretty fast. Over here, again, kind of that magic number of 10 to kind of go straight up against this 4. So we were able to kind of allocate forces across the border. This is going to be a long drawn-out battle here, though, in Cam Ranh. Up in the north as well, we're able to get 10 strength point forces to meet all of these insurgencies here, as well as had a little bit extra to try to take out these North Vietnamese Army brigades up in the remote areas. So let's go back now to, I'm going to kind of carry out some of these battles, and we'll see what it looks like and maybe do the Cam Ranh one live. Here's the Battle of Cam Ranh as it rages on over this kind of probably what would be imagine almost like a 2-month-long period of time. We have 15 strength points in the area consisting of the 3rd Marine, the elements, 2 brigades from the 4th Infantry, brigade from the 25th Infantry, and a 101st Airborne brigade as well. They have 10 Viet Cong forces. I'll show the combat results. Normally I have a separate camera, but we're having a little technical difficulties with it. Hopefully high on green and low on red. Oh, not too bad, 53. So this with 15, a 5 gets us a 6, kind of what would be expected. So this is going to get reduced down to 4. So we'll bring that in. This gets reduced to a 4, so still pretty strong, and they're going to get more reinforcements too. They had 10, getting a 3 gives them 5. So each one of our full strength brigades will take a hit point. And that's what the Battle of Cam Ranh looks like after this first 3-month period. Now they're going to get 2 more reinforcements, so it'll be 15 down to 6. So pretty decent progress in here. Some heavy casualties on both sides though. April 1969, the first round of the Tet Offensive has been completed. I feel like things went pretty well. Let's take a look at what happened. Good news and bad news up here. The bad news is I forgot that if we don't have any military forces in Mekong and there were Viet Cong forces here, that they attack the police and the police can't even attack them. So as a result, we lost 2 police force points up in the Mekong region. That was a tactical error. We should have just even flown up a couple of helicopters to kind of prevent the police from getting weakened there, because that's going to cost us 6 months worth of South Vietnamese Army recruiting up here because of that. So costly error. But the good news is Saigon went really well. We were able to wipe out the Viet Cong forces there. North Vietnamese Army Brigade has stayed up in the remote lands. We got a +4, which means up here in the very top corner of the screen, we're recruiting police. We now have a police force in Saigon. Down here in Bien Ho, combat went well. We're down to 1 victory point, 1 strength point for Viet Cong forces here, and we're able to eradicate the North Vietnamese Army brigades up here. Next move, I think, is going to be for our South Vietnamese Army forces to come down here into Bien Ho, because if we can get the +4 there, we can start recruiting police there as well. That would give us 3 of 9 provinces recruiting South Vietnamese Army regiments. We're going to have to fly some helicopters, I think, up here in the short run just to let them take some damage and try to weaken this insurgency up here so that the police force doesn't get further depleted. That was a costly mistake. Central part of the country here, Cam Ranh, that big battle that we saw, they've still got 6 strength points. We've got some pretty strong forces here, but this is really, I think, the strength of this Tet Offensive. Elsewhere, we had some pretty good success. We reduced Quy Nhon down to 1, but one of the North Vietnamese Army regiments here, but I think this is manageable. We've got a lot of forces in the area. We're able to whittle away some of the North Vietnamese Army brigades up in here. These units will have to be replenished. We'll have to get them down into the bases to get starting in recovery, but I think we have enough force in the area to take care of this. I'm not too worried about that. Likewise, Quang Nai here, we were able to put a heavy hit on the insurgency there, and they've only got one strength point left. I think we might be able to quell that with helicopters. So moving along pretty well so far. Likewise, up here in Da Nang, a strength fourth of 3 still left. We're able to reduce the North Vietnamese Army regiments in the remote areas. I think we've got enough force to handle that. Same thing goes for Hue and Quang Tri, bringing them down to 2 and 1 respectively. We do have these brigades up here, but I think we can start to look to shifting some of our forces to the remote lands to take care of those. So all in all, I felt like we were very well prepared for the Tet Offensive. Compared to the first game I played, to second game I played. The first game I lost in 2 turns. Second game I played, I lost the province of Da Nang. It fell, and it was really kind of hit or miss as to whether Saigon was going to fall during that Tet Offensive there. So this time I feel like I did a lot better. It helped to have been prepared for it and to kind of have our troops recovered, because I feel like we're in a really good spot for it so far. And with that being said, I'm going to go ahead now and play ahead to the end of 1969. We're going to start drawing off some of our U.S. brigades. We're going to lose 7 brigades and 2 helicopter units in this upcoming round here in the next 2 months. So U.S. forces starting to be removed. We got to get the South Vietnamese Army building up. And this is the part of the game. I haven't played this part yet at all. So I'm really not sure of my footing here. But we'll play ahead a little bit, and we'll see you in 6 months. December 1969, we've reached the end of the Tet Offensive. Let's take a look at the results, but on the whole, I'm very pleased with how things went. Having said that, I fear the hardest part in this campaign is yet to come. I'll talk more about that after we take a look at the Tet Offensive results. Good news in the southern part of South Vietnam, all enemy forces cleared out, absolutely free of enemy forces, and Mekong, Saigon, Bien Ho, all building police forces now. We're getting them stronger and stable. The southern part of South Vietnam looking pretty stable right now. Central part of South Vietnam only has these 2 small contingents of Viet Cong forces. We've completely turned Cam Ranh around. We have the political situation up now where there are no Viet Cong insurgents appearing over the course of seasons. So very much reached a neutral state. This is our next objective, and I'll talk more about that shortly. Likewise, the northern part of South Vietnam, again, all provinces except Da Nang, where it's producing just a small kind of insurgency on a seasonal basis, have been kind of cleaned out of Viet Cong forces and North Vietnamese forces. We have completely neutralized the Tet Offensive. That, all in all, is good, but let's talk a moment here about the long-term picture. So yes, the Tet Offensive went well, and you might be thinking, oh, game over, right? We won. However, I think the greatest challenge is yet to come, and honestly, I feel like the chances are greater that we're going to lose the war than win the war, and I'm going to explain why. First of all, over the course of the last year, we've lost almost 3 full divisions of U.S. forces, and over the next 2 years, we're going to lose like 90% of our forces. And here's the thing, the insurgency and the North Vietnamese Army brigades appearing, they're not going to stop. Matter of fact, we have a couple of big years coming up. So I'm not sure that we've done as good enough job as possible yet at building up the South Vietnamese Army forces. We've only got 5. So, and I don't know the way forward. Not having kind of played this part of the conflict before, kind of trying to figure it out as I go along, and I'm a little bit nervous that we're not going to do that well. Well, I'm not nervous. If we lose, we lose. It's all good and well, right? But I feel like the chances are almost greater that we're going to lose this conflict than win it. And so we're going to actually stop here and continue on to the next episode, but I do want to talk a little bit about plans going forward. So coming up, we're going to give a re-influx now of political cadres into South Vietnam. We're going to have more North Vietnamese Army brigades show up, so we're going to be faced with the same combat situation. 1969, we will still have a pretty solid U.S. military presence, so I'm hopeful we can take care of that. And also, there's a special event that comes up in 1970, we're going to still have enough American U.S. military units to, I think, contain this. And in 1970, we have a special event where we can do Cambodian incursions, where we can actually have a way to physically take out and attack political cadres that show up in these first 5 regions in the south part of the country. So that makes it very clear that I think our path forward for 1970, what I'm hoping to do is we're going to bring the insurgents in, bring in the North Vietnamese forces, and then the goal here is to swing Cam Ranh and to swing Quy Nhon into our favor and have police forces starting to be built up in those 5 regions. I think we really need that to be able to neutralize a lot of the North Vietnamese and Viet Cong activity that's going to be coming at us over the rest of the war. So that's where we're going to go in our next episode. I'm not confident we can pull it off, so please don't be deceived by the fact that everything looks really good now at the end of the Tet Offensive. With that, we'll be back shortly with our next episode. We're going to do Cambodian Incursion. We're going to do a Laos Incursion too. There's a similar event that comes up in here. So lots of like unique events that make the game flow different. And now we're definitely entering into a very different stage, this mid-game, where U.S. forces are leaving the country, insurgency is still continuing, and more we're going to need to rely on the South Vietnamese army and police forces to be able to contain the insurgency rather than our U.S. military might. Lots of work left to be done. If you've enjoyed this one, I'll put a link to the next episode as soon as it's ready right above here. Love to hear your comments and thoughts on how things are going down below. Also, it's the first time I've done kind of this after-action report type of video series. So if you have any thoughts on how to improve it, things you like, things you wish were better, I'd love to hear them down in the comments down below. So I look forward to hearing from everybody. We'll see you in our next episode of Save South Vietnam. Bye-bye.